Over the past few weeks, I've had many conversations with Tennessee business owners about their concerns with the Pillar 2 tax regime. These proposed rules started to take shape under the Trump administration and were intended to streamline the international tax system. Well, that has all run off the rails after the Biden administration started to get involved in these negotiations. And the progress that had been made suffered the same fate as many policies that have helped America rebound from the recession that took place in '09. Once again, the Biden administration has rubber-stamped a deal that will paint a target on the backs of American companies and allow other countries to subsidize their own economies with American tax dollars. Indeed, when you look at this, Pillar 2 will force multinational companies making more than $800 million in revenue to pay at least a 15% effective tax rate on income earned in every country where they operate, including their home base. If a company isn't paying at least 15% at home, other countries would be allowed to impose an additional tax on their domestic income using the undertaxed profits rule, or it's referred to as UTPR. Now, I want you to think about this. What the Biden administration has signed up for is going to be other countries that say, oh, you're not paying enough tax, American business, so you're going to have to pay tax over here and over here and over here. It becomes a money grab on U.S. businesses. Now, this undertaxed profits rule, doesn't that just sound odd? Your profits are undertaxed. Undertaxed. This was designed so they can enforce what is called the global minimum tax. And I'm sure that in the coming months, we'll hear more about this scheme and what it's actually going to do. But Tennesseans living and working in the real world have highlighted with me a couple of different problems that they see. First, this plan undermines multiple congressionally approved bipartisan tax treaties that were negotiated to help American companies be more competitive. If we allow this deal to go forward, we will hurt businesses and severely limit our own ability to respond to a recession or bolster our supply chains. So what they are doing, what the Biden administration is doing, is saying, all right, all of you companies and all these other countries out here, come on, this is your chance to tell U.S. companies how you think they ought to run their business, and they're going to have to pay you. Does that sound like something that is a pro-America economics policy? Of course not. Why would anybody at the Department of Commerce or anyone in this administration want to make life harder and more unfair for U.S. companies that are fighting supply chain issues, that are struggling every day to keep people employed and to raise their wages? You know, it's kind of like betting against yourself. But oh no, they do it. That's their plan. Second problem is even more egregious. By design, these new rules will force the U.S. into a one-size-fits-all tax regime we have repeatedly rejected, and it will make American companies the primary target of yet another punishing mandate. This country leads the world in job creation and growth, specifically because we embrace tax incentives and other pro-business policies. But Pillar 2 will penalize businesses for taking advantage of pro-growth incentives, and no one will fare worse than the United States. Here is the chart to make it easy for everyone to understand. And Madam President, I invite my colleagues to take a good look at this. This is what the global minimum tax scheme will do to U.S. companies. This is what Pillar 2 and the under-taxed profits rule will do to employers in your state, in everyone's state. This is what is going to happen. Take a look at this. Global minimum tax. 39.6% of that is coming from companies that are here. They're in every one of our states, every single one. 39.6% of this is coming from U.S. companies. Is that fair? Is that equal? Well, let's look at the numbers from the IMF. Let's look at what they're saying about that. Now, when you look at global GDP, the U.S. portion of that is 24%, which means that this rule would impose a massively disproportionate tax burden on American companies. Remember, we're at 39.6% for American companies. Well, the China slice is this little gray slice down here. It contributes 17.9% of the GDP, but they're only going to account for 7.6% of the income targeted by the UTPR. France, Germany, other major countries would also account for much less compared to their share of the GDP. This rule punishes growth and success, which is bad for investment. It is bad for people that depend on these countries. It is companies. It is bad for our citizens and their paycheck, and it is a way to redistribute the wealth of the United States to other countries by constructing this. I think this is a really bad deal. Now, it also benefits our adversaries. The Chinese Communist Party, they are jumping for joy over these things because Beijing added some language to Pillar 2 that exempts state-owned companies. The OECD guidelines define this in the simplest terms as an enterprise under some manner of state control, under some manner of state control, that offers goods or services for profit in the same manner a private operator would. Well, Madam President, under this definition, what enterprise in China isn't state-owned? If this seems like a win for communism, it's because it is. Under the proposed rule, the CCP, which has a stake in all these companies in China, that's how you do business, they would be able to subsidize their own economy with foreign tax dollars while avoiding the additional tax burden. And of course, we know what the CCP is doing with their profits that they're making. They're building up their military. They're bullying Taiwan, Philippines, the island nations, putting 7% of their GDP in building up their military because they want to dominate us. Well, business owners in Tennessee have been keeping an eye on these rules, and I haven't found anybody that thinks this thing is a good idea. Red tape alone will dissuade businesses from investing here because the cost of compliance will not be worth the potential profit. This, of course, presents a problem because right now Tennessee is benefiting tremendously from direct foreign investment. You have, here's a great example, SK Innovations partnership with Ford Motor Company at the Blue Oval City plant in Haywood County. It's bringing thousands of jobs, millions of dollars of investment to West Tennessee. And Blue Oval is already mired in red tape and in supply chain issues, courtesy of this administration. If you allow Pillar 2 to take hold and penalize these investments, Ford and SK and that innovation and Tennessee workers will suffer. So will the hundreds of suppliers, the small businesses, the skilled workers who are depending on these jobs to help a lot of these small businesses grow. We'll see the cracks spread to the municipalities that are tackling the issues of expanding utilities, roads, and infrastructure. Local housing developers will take a hit. Many of these small businesses and businesses that were really planning to flourish will fail. I find it disturbing that this administration will waste time spreading false claims about their legendary job creation skills while they write rules that are undermining the ability to do business. I know that my colleagues on each side of the aisle are flabbergasted by this because we all said as much during last week's Finance Committee hearing. This country is on the verge of another economic disaster because this administration refuses to stand up for American companies, homegrown companies. Many of them started small and they have grown. Instead of fighting for counties like Haywood County, Tennessee, the White House is serving up Haywood County's taxpayers on a silver platter. Why? Redistribute the wealth. Look at who's going to pay. Instead of fostering a competitive playing field, they're punishing businesses because they are successful. Redistribute the wealth. Look at this pie chart. Take it in. All this has done is show the American people that they are not the Biden administration's priorities. It is clear. Thank you, Madam President. I yield the floor.